Okay, welcome to Into the Channel podcast, primarily about women's football. Before we hit the pitch, if you enjoy the show or love women's football as much as your boys do, come kick it with us already. What are you waiting for? Subscribe, follow YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to watch or listen. Leave us a review over at your favorite podcast app. Links to all of our socials in the show notes of this episode. I am your host, Dino Cespedes, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Grant Engel, part 3. What is up, man?
I'm feeling all right, buddy. I think it's time to crack the second beer of what is certainly a 2-beer show. That's for the microphone.
I'm going to crack a little seltzer over here. Boy's still recovering from my extended DNP. I mean, this is like playoff time, crunch time. I don't want to make any silly rookie mistakes.
Look, if you guys think these footballers are tired after these very intensive matches, just imagine how 2 podcasters could be even more tired with their day jobs and then these busy lives writing and producing one of the world's greatest women's football podcasts.
Hosted by 2 bros, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Let's get into it. Champions League Thursday. Well, actually, quick programming reminder. Part 1, we covered the NWSL semifinals and some U.S. women's national team news. Part 2, if you missed that, we previewed the Champions League's 4 Wednesday matchups. So all that leaves are the 4 Thursday matchups. Cannot wait to get into these. Mr. Grant Engel, where do you want to get started?
Let's get started with Manchester City Football Club. They defeated Hammarby in Matchday 3, 2-0. They are coming off kind of I will say, like what felt like a pretty deflating 2-0 loss in league play to Chelsea. But let's not talk about that just yet. I don't want to focus on that right now. Let's harken back to the good times. In Matchday 3, Mary Fowler is a killer out there, man. Mm-hmm. When she gets on the ball and decides what direction she wants to go, and when she is really clicking, there's nobody stopping her from going the direction that she wants to go. And I felt like she bossed major parts of this match.
She's such a unique player.
Yeah.
We love to do comps on this show. And we'll go cross sport, we'll go cross gender. We don't, there's no barriers here. We'll just mix it up however which way we feel like. Mary Fowler is a really tough player to come up with a comp for because she's so electric and, she's so skilled. But then she's not inconsistent because nobody can do what she does all the time.
Right.
Such a special player, such a unique player.
Yeah. And I mean, Hammarby just had their hands absolutely full. Mm-hmm. And then on the other side of Bunny Shaw, and it wasn't one of Bunny Shaw's best matches by any stretch because she sets an extremely high bar for herself as well. But on the other side of Bunny, you had Alba Fugino, who looked like she may have got a hattie in this match, probably could have scored 4. But Fugino eventually gets on the score sheet. It's a 2-0 win, pretty professional win. Hammarby had some of their moments, especially late in the first half. Julie Blackstad had just kind of had the ball like caught under her feet and couldn't really capitalize. And I really felt like, Hammarby's kind of looking back at that moment, like, oh, what could have happened if we went up 1-0 over City in that spot. But it just felt like, City was in control. They knew what they needed to do, and they got it done.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned Bunny Shaw. I forgot to bring this up earlier. ESPN's top 50, I thought the list was pretty solid, but, your boys never shy about giving ourselves a pat on the back. Leanne Sanderson on her show asked us who our top 3 were in the world. I think we crushed it if we want to use the ESPN top 50 as a barometer. I named Bomati, CGH, and Banda as my top 3. Those players were in the top 4 along with Naomi Girma.
Sure.
And I think Bunny Shaw, who you had instead of Banda, came in at number 6.
There we go.
But if you haven't seen that list, go check it out. I think ESPN, shout out to them. They did a great job, a really interesting read, and really interesting to compare their top 50 to previous years, and also The Guardian, who does a great list as well.
Yeah, always worth a read. There are so many leagues, and still in women's football, it's hard to have access to all the different leagues at times. Mm-hmm. You really kind of got to go seek them out. Obviously, if you're rocking with your boys on this show, you probably have an interest, at least in multiple leagues. Obviously, specifically the Champions League. That's the birthplace of this very program.
The backbone.
Exactly. But I mean, speaking of backbone, we just got to talk about Alex Greenwood, Layla Wahhabi, Kirsten Kasparai, Alana Kennedy, and then obviously Yui Hasegawa in front of them. It just feels like City has the tools, has like the wherewithal all over the field. The 2-0 loss to Chelsea notwithstanding, that I'm still pretty annoyed about, frankly. In this Champions League, I think this is going to be like some momentum building stuff, but I got to point out, man, I'm not going to count any chickens. They got to go into Stockholm and play Hammarby. You know the crowd's going to be electric. I was looking at the forecast. This match is going to take place, I think, at like 6:45 p.m. over there in Stockholm. What's the temperature going to be tomorrow at the time we're recording this? Around 6:45 p.m. in Stockholm. It's going to be somewhere between 30 and 38 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's going to be pretty freaking cold, right around the freezing line. And you're going to have to play physical against Hammarby, and the crowd's going to be in it. I think City's going to be in for a tough test.
I agree with that. And a lot of buzz this week, too, about Hammarby's ability to draw a crowd. I think they're expecting a record audience, which is going to be really exciting. And I think, I'm full agreement with you. The only thing better than European nights are those frigid European Scandinavian nights where literally anything can happen. I do hope that City pulls through here. I want to see City push Barcelona in that Group D. But again, Hammarby, I'm expecting a big-time crowd. I'm expecting a big-time performance from that side. I think it's going to be a tough matchup.
You also have to think the Damallsvenskan season is over. So now no more matches. They're just focused on this. The last match they played was that 2-0 loss at Joy Stadium in Manchester. Now they have a singular focus. I think that plays a role in some of these matches. I feel like we kind of witnessed it with BK Häcken last year in this group stage, in this tournament. Really, I think the question comes down to, can Katinka Thunberg and Ellen Wangerheim get through that kind of middle trio of Yui Hasegawa, Alex Greenwood, and Alana Kennedy? I think that's going to be probably the most interesting part of the match for me.
Totally agree. I think they're going to slam their foot on the gas. Pretty much this is the only thing they've got to play for. And I think they know how they want to win, and then maybe kind of hope for a little bit of an off day for City's offense and do what they can to try to make that off day maybe more probable. So we're going to be locked into this one for sure. It's in the early slot on Thursday. And then the next match in that same slot, speaking of teams who have wrapped up their domestic leagues, Valerenga will be hosting Bayern Munich. If you rewind back to match day 3, Bayern gets a nice 3-0 win. Looking at this Bayern side, 10 matches so far this season. They've got 4 different players with at least 5 goal contributions. You look at Pernille Harder, 5 goals. You look at Leah Schuler, 5 goals, 2 assists. Georgia Stanway having a great season. Can't wait to see her. Hopefully she plays for the Lionesses against this U.S. women's national team side. Excited about that one. Talk about that later. 4 goals, 3 assists for her. And Clara Bull, 4 goals and 5 assists for Bayern's standout on the wing. 12 different goal scorers total on 29 total goals. That's a great distribution from Bayern. Real sleeping giant potential from the German side.
I just put in my notes after watching this match, Bayern's playing like a team who thinks they can win this tournament. And they might. They might have a shot. I mean, let me walk it back a little bit. Do I think they might win the tournament? Probably not. But do I think they can get extremely far in the tournament? Absolutely. And they're playing like it. So they're playing with that level of confidence. I just think every time Julia Gavin hits a penalty kick, every time she steps up to the spot to hit a penalty kick, somebody invent the app that will give me a notification so I can find wherever that's being televised to watch it. I'm trying to think of a right back in the universe that I would take over Julia Gavin, and I think it's a difficult proposition.
That's a tough one. I mean, she's so good. I don't have the list on hand, but I know she was also pretty high up on ESPN's top 50. Bayern, they're in control of their group. They're sitting 3 points clear and +4 in the goal differential category, in the absolute driver's seat. But with that said, they do have to go to Norway. They do have to face the tough Valerenga side. I imagine the weather's going to be a little nippy there as well. We'll keep an eye on that. Valerenga wrapped up the top Syrian season as champions again this past weekend. They will be playing Rosenborg in the Cup final November 24th, and they'll be back in the Champions League next season. So congrats to them alongside our beloved SK Braun. Let's fucking go. But yeah, man, Oslo, Thursday. This one's got a little Celtic Chelsea match day 3 potential. I think this one gets a little interesting.
I like it. I'll be right there. I'll be right there watching with you. I think this is going to be a good one. I think it's one of the matches I'm definitely looking forward to the most.
For sure. Yeah, in the first match, I think the shot total was pretty, it wasn't pretty even, but it was kind of in the same ballpark. Valerenga managed 7 to Bayern's 14. Bayern are much more clinical with their chances. And this one was 2-0 really, really late into stoppage time before Zadrazil's masterpiece of a goal. Watch that one a few times on repeat. We'll see if we get some more magic like that in the reverse fixture. But let's scoot ahead and talk about the champs. Barcelona, St. Polten. This is your domain. I want to kick it over to you in true Barca style. Let's keep the ball moving. What are you going to be looking for in this one?
First item of business, talking about the best right backs in the world, to our pal MLS Architect in the YouTube chat. Don't yell at me. I would understand if you take Onabate over Julia Gavin at right back. That's fine. That's fine. I'm just saying Julia Gavin is also very, very good. It depends on what style you like. Shout out to St. Polten, man.
My mind went to Emily Fox, too. I'm like, I gotta, maybe best in the world is a little bit of a stretch, but I don't know, worth a shout, I'd say.
Sure. I mean, as a City guy, I like Kirsten Kasperai. I think she plays a great right back as well. Onabate, though, I will tell you, the amount of times where you believe you're on a counterattack, you believe you have some space, and then Onabate decides that you no longer have any space to operate, it is pretty incredible to watch.
Yeah, they call her eminent domain.
That's about right. She is making the decision for you. Back to the St. Polten match. Shout out to St. Polten, STP. It was an interstate love song for 30 minutes at the beginning of this match. I was just like, man, they're really hanging tough. And then things started to kind of go the other way. I think it speaks to Barcelona's greatness, to where I'm watching it and I'm just incredibly impressed with Karina Schluter and what STP is able to do by keeping it scoreless for a half hour. And then one of the difficult things that starts to happen when you play Barcelona is that anytime you counterattack, let's say you're holding them scoreless, let's say you are performing the miracle and you have not allowed Barcelona to score, but then when you get the ball in your attacking 18, it just feels like you see teams, especially some of the smaller clubs, they start to panic and they're like, I gotta shoot. I have to shoot from 22 yards out at a weird angle or else we'll never get any shots, because players like Battier, Paredes, Mappy Leon, and now Esme Brutes back there at left back, teams just, they feel like they have to try to rip these shots and that have no chance of beating Katakoi. And then you get into the part of the proceedings where you're not able to stop Barcelona's attack anymore, and they start scoring. And this is the magic of Barcelona. You can go into halftime 4-0 down or 5-0 down, and you still have people like me watching going, man, it could have been worse. Pretty good from St. Polten.
They probably clapping going into the tunnel. I agree with you, man. Schluter, rock solid. I mean, to stop any, I mean, like, she was getting peppered.
Yeah.
And that Barcelona attack it's interesting because Barcelona, obviously stumbles out of the gate against City, but I sort of feel like they were maybe having a better group stage than they were having last season.
Ooh, that's a good take.
They had that tricky one against Frankfurt where I think they fell behind and maybe went into halftime down one, then the draw against Benfica. I feel like they look more dominant this season. Obviously, Alexia's back. Mappy's back, who you mentioned. Eva Paior up front. Claudia Pina is getting more. I think they're finding, to rewind back to the Orlando Pride conversation we were having at the very, very top, part 1 of this episode, feels like Barca's figuring out how and when to use these players. Even Patri this weekend. You mentioned the 2 goals against Madrid. It felt like her goals last year were, I don't want to say opportunistic, but maybe not by design. And now it looks like she's getting more chances. And they're sort of figuring out the spacing a little bit better. Probably Alexia coming back is definitely helping with that. I feel like they've put Alexia on one side and Aitana kind of sort of on the other side. So there's always a genius Ballon d'Or player with space to operate and with space to distribute. And I think Barcelona, like I said, looking a little bit more dangerous than they did last year. It might be another really long 90 plus for St. Polten coming up here on Thursday.
I think that's probably a pretty safe bet. I think, one of the things, aside from you're down 5 goals at halftime, and I'm like, well, it could have been a lot worse. I think one of the other red herrings here is I write in my notes as this match is happening, man, I hate it when Bonmati and Payor come off the pitch. Welcome Carolina Graham Hansen and Alexia Putellas to the match. It's just like, I don't know. What are you supposed to do about anything like that if you're the opponent? So Barcelona, they only put together disappointing 2 goals in the second half of this match on 80% possession to finish the match winning 7-0. I think the question is, what can STP do to create a tighter scoreline than 7-0? I think there's a narrow path to that. I mean, other than like Bruntaler or Peckel maybe nicking a goal at some point, I think we might be in for another big crooked number to a big old donut for STP. But I will just say again, to our Austrian pals out there, your team is getting better. Like from what we saw last year to this year, I would say significantly better. And I'm excited to just like keep watching you guys play in this tournament.
Totally agree with that. And obviously STP, they've got another one against Hammarby, got another one against City. This is a squad, like you mentioned, that doesn't have many pathways through in this group with Barcelona and City sitting up top. But I like the direction that they're going. I like the spirit they play with. They look better. They look, a little bit more organized this year.
Yeah.
And this is a really good chance against pretty much, the second best team in the world.
Wow. Bold. MLS. That was Dino that said that.
Come at me, bro. You already know what time it is. We're in Orlando. We're out here. Let's get these 2 teams to play. Just one match. Post-Champions League. I'd be into that. Let's shift gears, though. Juventus heading to North London to take on my Gunners. This one's a big one. Arsenal got a big result. Match day 3. Going to Torino. 4-0 win on the road. The story of the season so far, it's got to be Frida Leonhardt-Manum. She's on absolute fire. Mariona Caldente right behind her, playing really, really great ball. You look at Manum, she scored in Arsenal's last 3, 1 each against Brighton, Juve, and Tottenham. She also had 4 goals in 1 match versus Albania in Euro qualifying for Norway. Let's fucking go.
Let's go.
Yeah, I wasn't going to let that opportunity slip by. She had 5 total over the 2 legs versus the Albanian side. And Arsenal in 6 matches since Renee Slagers took the helm, 5 wins, 1 draw, looking good there. 19 goals for, only 2 goals allowed. We talked a lot last time we talked Champions League about that Arsenal defense, how leaky they looked under Jonas Eidevall, especially in those last 2 against Chelsea and Bayern, where they gave up 7 goals. I think they're looking a lot more cohesive defensively and offensively. I think on offense, it seems like the movements are much better synchronized. It's not sort of like just one person trying to do something or everybody trying to do something. It looks like there's a lot more method to the madness at Arsenal, and I think Slagers is getting a lot of production from that talented squad.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly stated, man. I mean, even on the Caldente goal in the 80th minute versus Juventus, Lena Hurtig brings the ball all the way down to the end line. It pings around a little bit before it gets to Caldente, but just the fact that Hurtig was able to kind of create all of that, I would like to state for the ITC record book, I think Lena Hurtig should get an assist for that. Shaping of the field really kind of created that goal. It's such a great point by you that like the team's not moving like a big freighter like ship out on the ocean. Like now there are people moving into different spaces. Like it just seems like there is almost like been some creativity that's been like injected into the team, like almost a level of freedom that they appear to be playing with. So I mean, now you talk about, I know you got Orlando Pride as your best team in the world. Barcelona is your second best team in the world. Stay tuned, everybody, for next week when Dino says Arsenal is the third best team in the world.
Oh, that's definitely, it's like plus 1,300, plus 1,400 on me actually saying that out loud into a microphone.
There we go.
But we'll see. I mean, Juve, full on wobble. They started the season 9 straight wins in Serie A Femenil and the Champions League. 26 goals for, 9 against during that stretch. Since then, though, they're 2-2-2. 2 wins and 2 draws in Serie A Femenil, 2 Champions League group stage losses in which they've yet to score a goal, a home loss to Bayern, a home loss to Arsenal, and in their last 6 matches, 8-4, 8 against. So who's the real Juve in your mind? Obviously they have that super hot start. Now, it's kind of like 2-2-2, 8-8, looking mighty mediocre. Do you think they're one or the other, somewhere in between? Where do you land on this Juve side?
So you mentioned they're still sitting top of the table, Serie A Femminile. They're sitting on 26 points, 4 points ahead of Fiorentina. They have a plus 19 goal differential over there in Italy. They're very clearly not in the same weight class as Arsenal. It would be a tall task for them to be. Do I think they're as tough as they looked against PSG in the qualifying to get to the group stage? Maybe not quite. Maybe they're 80% of that. Something weird was going on with PSG in those last two qualifiers.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a roundabout. This is me. I am very much, and Leanne Sanderson, our pal, a friend of the show, one of the greatest broadcasters in the world, would yell at me for this. I'm going to sit on the fence a little bit. I'm going to behave like a squirrel, and I'm going to sit on the fence, and I'm going to say, I think Juventus is good. I want to maintain that. But can they reach the level of Bayern Munich and Arsenal in this Champions League? I think that's just too much to ask of them right now.
I think that's fair. I think one thing that I could mention in their favor, scoreline, the 4-0 scoreline, maybe a little bit misleading.
Yeah.
This one was 1-0 up until the 75th minute. The shooting stats, I think, were somewhat close. Also want to give a shout out to Arsenal goalkeeper Daphne van Domselaar. She saved all 6 shots that she faced that were on target. Yeah. 6 for 6. Let me check my math here. Yeah, checks out 100%.
Okay.
I'm not going to say this one's a walk. You know, Arsenal not quite a shoe-in to be my third best team in the world come next episode. But I do think this one will be in contest, even though it'll be played in North London. But I do expect Arsenal to come out on top here. This one will close out the week along with Barcelona. So very, very excited. Cannot wait for this week's action to kick off.
I mean, anytime you get a battle of badges like Arsenal and Juventus, I know it was 4-0. I think it's a good point by you that maybe 4-0 is a little misleading. I know I said, Juventus not quite in the weight class. It doesn't mean that sometimes you can punch above that weight. So I think this is another one I'm absolutely thrilled to be watching. It's going on at the same time. If you have the luxury of watching this live, it's going on at the same time as Barcelona, St. Polten. Maybe you can kind of be locked into this one and kind of glance over. I think it just sets up perfectly as a great bookend to another 2 fantastic days of Champions League football.
Absolutely. And last quick note here. Speaking of badges, shout out to Alessia Russo, Arsenal striker, who reached right for that badge as she got Arsenal on the board in the North London Derby against Tottenham. Let's fucking go. Big 3-0 win for her. I think Alessia Russo, another player kind of unlocked here by Renee Slager's quick programming reminder. Later this week, we'll be back with a Matchday 4 recap. Once all the matches are said and done, we will also be previewing the NWSL final. We just covered a ton of ground. I'm not sure which player that makes us, but I think every blade of grass, NWSL, Champions League, and everywhere in between, your boys were on it. Did we miss anything? Anything else you want to hit before we get out of here?
I think we covered everything we possibly could. I think if I may be so bold, could you possibly be Frida Manum, and maybe I think I'd like to be Jess Park in this scenario because we covered a lot of ground. We're holding the ball throughout. We're creating the action. I think we made it happen today, my man.
What a pairing. What a pairing that would be. Two just absolute killers in their prime. I think that's a well, what a comp. What a pair of comps. Shout out to you. All right, man. I think we did it. This has been another episode of Into the Channel. Sincere thank you for watching, listening, following, liking, subscribing, just plain hanging out with your boys. And remember to like if you liked and subscribe or follow Into the Channel, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to watch or listen. Leave us a review over your favorite podcast app. Links to all of our socials in the show notes of this episode. And a huge thank you to my co-host as well, Mr. Grand Angle, for being the Jess Park to my Frida Leonardo Manum. You already know what time it is. I appreciate you, bro. Let's continue to get it done.
Absolutely. Likewise, my good man. Thank you. And for the pals of the show who are watching, I just want you to know, Dino playing through pain, fighting through pain, making sure he gets to the Orlando Pride semifinal match over here in America. Shout out to our guy. Please congratulate him for fighting through it, making sure he gets shit done. That's how he rolls. He's an absolute warrior. We thank you for rocking with us, and we will see you all next time.